If you dig the twisted, admire the outlandish, and are enamored by the unusual, you're in the right place. True crime, the supernatural, the unexplained, now you're speaking our language. If you agree, join us as we dive into the darker side. You know, because it's more fun over here. Welcome to Total Conundrum.
Warning, some listeners may find the following content disturbing. Listener discretion is advised. Ha 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 ha.
All right, Conundrum crew. Today's guest has a resume so stacked it might need its own entourage. We're talking about the man, the myth, the voice behind one of the most haunting and iconic songs ever to echo through vampire lore. Yes, it's the one and only G. Tom Mack.
Also known as Gerard McMahon. This guy is more than just a legend behind Cry Little Sister from the Lost Boys. He's a Grammy award-winning artist. He has dropped multiple albums, including Blue Rue, Thou Shall Not Fall, and this year is the 25th anniversary of his killer self-titled album, G. Tom Mack. He's a musical chameleon, and honestly probably part vampire, because how else do you explain the decades of creative energy?
But let's back up, because before he became the voice of a vampiric teen rebellion, Gerard was born in Birmingham, England, and moved to New York City at age 11. Gerard jumped into music early and never looked back.
Throughout the 70s and 80s, he wrote and performed for major acts, scoring big studio gigs, and basically became the guy who could do it all. Rock, pop, soul, you name it. He's written music for legends like Roger Daltrey, KISS, Ice Cube, and Carly Simon, and contributed to countless film and TV soundtracks.
We're talking The Lost Boys, Fast Times at Ridgemount High, Chasing Amy, Witchblade, Scrubs, The Shield, Defiance, Pig Killer. Honestly, his IMDb page reads like a pop culture fever dream, but in the best way.
And here's a fun twist. Not only is his most famous track basically the anthem to the 80s vampire culture, but he's also snagged a Grammy working with none other than Eminem. Yep, Slim Shady and G. Tom Mack collaborated on You're Never Over from his album Recovery, which went on to win Best Rap Album in 2011.
And he's not done yet. He reinvented his style more than once. With the 80s theme play, Don't You Forget About Me, he also built an entire rock opera prequel to The Lost Boys called Cry Little Sister, the Rock Opera, and Lost Boys, the Musical, and continues to tour, write, and inspire with that signature mix of gothic soul and rock energy.
And as if we weren't geeking out enough, he just happens to be an absolute delight to talk to. So buckle up, Conundrum crew, because we're talking musical legacy, reinvention, and maybe a little bloodlust. So grab your leather trench coat and crank up the reverb. This is the Dark Prince of soundtrack royalty, the one, the only, G. Tom Mack.
So Gerard, why did you change your name to G. Tom Mack?
Well, they never could pronounce my proper name.
Right.
I changed it on the Lost Boys album to Gerard McMahon because people called me when I had albums out under Gerard McMahon. And people in this country could never quite get the McMahon right. They would go McMahon or McMahon, and it always had to over-accentuate the H. And so at one point I said, there's got to be a better way. And I would go to, literally get on radio shows in the morning when I'd be on the road to do those morning shows, promo, whatever. And they all got it wrong, except for one. And she was a female. She said, "Oh, Gerard McMahon." I'm going, wow. So it just goes to show you, women got it over men.
That's true. Very true.
Yeah, but it's just got annoying after a while. And I took after I produced Roger Daltrey's album, I took a long break I just kind of was trying to refigure myself out. And then I was signed to DreamWorks and made a record. And I just thought, I'm going to call it G. Tom Mack, which are my sort of initials, if you will, Gerard Thomas McMahon. And so everybody said, oh, that's kind of artist suicide, isn't it? People kind of know who you are from everything you've done. And I said, I just want to reinvent. And if it's good, which I felt it was, they'll figure it out and, they'll buy the record or something, So and to such great relationship with DreamWorks at the time, we released the album came out, and it was getting sync licenses, which are getting on television shows from Roswell to Felicity to this one to that one, and Scrubs. It just became one of those, and nobody knew who G-Tom Mac was. And that was kind of refreshing to me, actually. And I just stayed with it, and none of these people knew that I wrote, all the movie from everything from Fast Times at Ridgemont High to All the Right Moves to this one, that one, Lost Boys. It was just a new lease on life of a career. And I just sort of, this is quite fascinating. And nobody ever got my name wrong, my new name.
Well, it's got a nice ring to it. I like the G Tom Mac. It's,
it's like Fleetwood Mac, but it's got 3 syllables. You know what I mean? And it's easy. And if you can't figure out G Tom, then you're in really big trouble. And then people would it's interesting though, people call me G Tom or they call me G.
Yeah.
And so and they just figured that out themselves. So lowest common denominator, right?
I like it. I think it's got a nice ring, but I love Gerard too. It's, it's a very beautiful name, and my father's name is Gerald. So it's very, very.
People thought my Gerald, by the way,
did
too.
they?
They actually put an L in there instead of the R.
When I was looking you up, I seen about 10 different variations of your name. Jerry, Gerald with a J.
It's a destroyed name in every which way.
Yeah, it's rough.
There's a documentary which we do talk about my name and why I changed it. The documentary is called How Did I Get Here? That's being in the process of being made right now with a really great team. My producer, Mimi Blackson from Netflix. And yeah, it's very difficult for me to watch something about me, but they've done
I'm sure.
a job. And it's like, I'm just not that egocentric or vain, but not egocentric. But I just, it's interesting. We get into, why the name changes. And it's not me talking about it so much, but it's other people, fans and everything talking about it,
Yeah. And that comes out in 2026, right?
Yes, that's right. Kind of coincides with The Lost Boys, the musical, coming on Broadway in March 2026 as well.
Yeah, you've got a lot coming up in this next year.
Yeah, it's been more, the past few years with doing 2 musicals and working on a rock opera. It has been, there's no time for any kind of vacation really, which I desperately need.
Yeah,
but I love to work. I love being creative, and I love working with the creative teams that we have that are doing these various projects. Yeah, I haven't got that much time left on the planet, so I figured, get it all in.
So what do you actually do on the Broadway musical?
Well, I started writing the musical and 8 years ago. And it went through all these various, it's owned by Warner Brothers. So, but I had gone to Joel Schumacher initially and said, I want to do this. And he understood that I knew musical theater because he knows that world as well. And he gave me his blessing to do it. And this is before he passed away, a few years before that. And we would have lengthy conversations about, my idea of making it, getting a gist as to how they all came together. And that would be Act 1. And I could go on and on about this. So I went down the road and just spent my own dime as far as like putting it together. And I have a good relationship at Warner Brothers, but so many things have changed there in the years of recent. And so it became like they didn't know where the property of Lost Boys really lay. They didn't know. They thought, well, we own it, but then we have a deal with somebody, it was one of those things. And I was getting really good heat on what I wrote. And with, Warner Brothers, by the way, doesn't pay for something to go to Broadway. It's a license thing, as is my song or anything like that. They're not going to pay for, they're not in that business, so to speak. I think they had been in the past. So anyway, the pandemic happened.
Yeah.
and everything just sort of blew out, you know. And then we had a conversation, and I was getting a lot of good bump on what I'd written. And it's not like I don't know what I'm doing. I've studied musical theater, and and all that. So and then at one point they just wanted to they somebody raised X amount of dollars to Patrick Wilson, and you know who he is. You probably should in your world. You know, he's
Oh,
done
for sure.
those paranormal things.
Yeah.
Lovely guy, and his partner James and Marcus. They put together a more. I mean, mind you, mine was dark but funny. It had all those elements in it, but it had had a lot of depth to knowing what the fan base is.
Mhm.
And so we got together, we started chatting about how and where this should go between those three and me. And yeah, it came to a place where it it's still, still in its development stages, but they got a good act two going on with it now. So it's very, it's still in the process of what it is. And of course, they came to me for the license of Cry Little Sister and all those things. But, it's, it's a different kind of teamwork at this stage. And I welcome it and they welcome it. And so we've just, it's just, but during the process of what all of this going on, I got another musical to do. Paul Brooks produced My Big Fat Greek Wedding and Pitch Perfect 1, 2, 3, and now 4. Wanted me to write a musical for him. And because he loved what I was doing with Lost Boys. And he said, I'd love you to write something. I said, well, what? And he said, I don't know, something 80s, something that would be just, he said, I love the way when we have conversations, you have just not a knowledge, you have just good knowledge in general of the decades. So I took 3 or 4 months and I started writing. It came up with an idea called Don't You Forget About Me it's about pen pals in the 80s. And it was about 6 characters, London, New York, and LA that I came up with and all different walks of life. And just 3 girls, 3 guys, and they all kind of help each other's lives. And they have all these interesting lives and some not so interesting and somebody wanting more of an interesting life. And, you know, it turned out to be a really interesting thought process in my head. And I wrote it down. I did a treatment and I said, Paul, I think I have something. He said, I'd rather do a Zoom call and have a chat with you about it. And then we did. And he said, I love it. Let's do it. And, but he said, I do not want to go to Broadway. I want to go right to the screen. He said, and I said, oh, I get that. He said, yeah, I don't want to spend 10 years like you do. He said, we don't have that much time. And I thought that was clever. I said, well, you don't have that much time left. And, but anyway, so we're doing that. And it's actually was the perfect timing because, when you work on one project for so long, and I know the process, stereophonic on Broadway took 11 years, and I know all these people that have just spent, and it's really a tremendous amount of due diligence. And it's just all the things that we love to do, but there's just all this other crap that just gets in the way, not to mention the investors pulling in and pulling out and all of that. The worst sex anyone could ever have.
So you had sent over one of the songs from that musical, and I listened to it, and it is beautiful.
Don't You Forget About Me?
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
And
I'm really proud. Yeah, it's.
Oh, I was going to say, I also have been jamming out to the Lost Boys, the rock opera. That soundtrack is amazing. I keep telling Jeremy, I'm like, you got to listen to this one. You got to listen to this one.
Thank you. Well, you know what had happened? It's Cry Little Sister to rock opera. And what I started thinking after all of this stuff had gone through, and I didn't want all these great ideas that had been, that I had noted to go to waste. And it's really sort of what Wicked did to The Wizard of Oz, is what Cry Little Sister to the rock opera is. And it's a real interesting story and it's really based on, the superheroes of Joan of Arc. We go back in time and we see why this particular main character of a star exists in today's times. And it's very hard to explain all of this to you, but it's an interesting process of like even the evil strength of women, Cleopatra, into all of these. So there's a touch of all of that stuff going on, but it is contemporary. And there's a dash of the 80s that goes on, but it doesn't stay in the 80s. It gets into the contemporary time.
Right.
So, but yeah, it's coming along. I mean, it's, I've got to get through Don't You Forget About Me, which got a very good screenwriter that wrote a really good script. I sat with him for 9 months, and then he spent 2 years working on it.
I love the idea of going back to the 80s and the simple times and the writing the letters, and that was a nostalgic period of time.
That's interesting you bring that up, because I thought to myself, in an age that we live in with these things and everything else, it's, we're in Don't You Forget About Me. You got a cord coming from the wall of the phone, which is a phone, and you got all these little things. There's so many things that are thrown in there where obviously kids with their parents go, "What's that?" It's like the dinosaur age,
That's the fun stuff.
But it's I feel very good. Paul Brooks is British, Charlie's British. And the very thing I said when I'd written the story, I said, I really want to have the feel of Love Actually, just all these different people, different characters, and they flow in and out of each other's lives. And there's a difference that's made, and you get to see the 80s of a simple time, to your point. Right. And it's not like trying to be nostalgic, but it will be. Right. And I've written all new songs. We do the song Don't You Forget About Me, which I've created a whole new arrangement of it in its a large choir and a big orchestra doing it, and with all the characters singing it. But the songs, to your point, the song you pointed out, that's a big song in the film, in the musical. But all the songs are written. I'll send you on a few others. One sounds a bit like The Police in a way, and one sounds like U2. Well, it goes through a genre of all kinds of different, Bananarama,
Well, that just plays into your musical talent, though, because you are quite the chameleon. You can take on so many different sounds to your voice and styles, and you make them all amazing.
Well, thank you very much. It's sort of like, I think it was from being in cover bands coming up from a very early age, and I could always sound like I could do a good James Brown. I do a good Mick Jagger. I just sort of like was able to, I don't know. And that is why we got gigs, because I could sound like all those.
Right.
I heard a little Sir Paul McCartney in there too on one of your songs.
Times, yeah. Well, I know. And his stepmom's in the documentary as well. Yes. Yeah. There's a lot of, Billy Bob Thornton, and there's all kinds of folks coming in and out. And of course, Jason Patrick from the Lost Boys, and various other Lost Boys have been interviewed. And Sharon Stone, my friend Sharon Stone, did a lovely interview. It's all really, I just didn't want it to be a big, like, he did this and then he did that, and wow, isn't he amazing? And just, I just wanted it to be as normal as it could be. Yeah. I mean, my world is not normal, but I am, to some degree.
Right.
I maintain normality in order to live in a non-normal.
Correct. I watched the preview for the documentary, and there was a couple segments in there that your personality just shines through. You were with a couple gentlemen, off the top of my head. I've watched so much and listened to so much over the past 2 weeks. You'll have to forgive me. I can't remember who was in it. But you guys were like, you just broke out into dance and just having fun. Like, I think it was while you were filming scenes. And I was like, that is just so raw, and you just shows your personality.
Yeah, well, there's a few good laughs in there. I think I've seen those at the trailers.
Yes,
they're just mock-up trailers that they put together, but they're good. Roger Daltrey's in one, and then there's I worked with Earth, Wind and Fire at one point, so there was that part. Philip Bailey is in it because I worked with him. I mean, there's loads of people. I mean, there are many people. My first manager when I was 14, 15 years of age, he's still alive. Road manager to Booker, and he does a great interview. I actually kind of like one of the best, because it's just very humble and very much saying, how difficult it was to get the band into these clubs, because I was only 15.
Right.
But anyway, to your point, a lot of different voices come out of this guy because of, I do have my own voice, but it's, it was, I think it came from that. And, who was it? Harrison Ford, I think. We were at a party and he said, oh, introducing me to somebody. What did he say? He said, John, and blah, blah, blah. And he said, oh, he's like the Meryl Streep of singer-songwriters. And I didn't know what the hell he was talking about. But then I got it, oh, well, that's a compliment,
Right.
So,
Well, and speaking about your earlier years and doing, digging in and stuff, you came to the US around 11 years old.
yeah.
And what I was researching, excuse me, my nose is itchy. I saw that you learned self-taught yourself to play the guitar. You just you were able to pick up songs, and then you had somebody else that was able to teach you chords. And from that, I also learned, what's that?
No, I'm just saying Dave down the road taught me how to play chords. I just wanted to, my mom and dad wanted me to have proper lessons, and I tried it, and I just said, I do not want to learn scales. I just want to learn riffs, chords, as many as I can. And so the guy, I ended up, he was like 19, 20 years of age, and I just go down there and learn riffs and everything. He was great. And then at one point, he said, you got a good voice. You look, our singer's leaving to go off to university. Would you want to try out for the band? And so I did. And it was, there were other people trying out, and they were older too, but they went with my voice and me. And I've had a good deal of theatrics going on as well. So that was, kind of helped the stage. So
right.
it was, thank God for Dave Smith, rest his soul.
Yeah, it sounds like you had a pretty incredible time doing that, because you were going to clubs, staying out late, but still going to school. Your parents wanted you to get home, get rest.
My parents were wonderful in the sense that they were very supportive. Here we are coming to a country we knew really nothing about.
Right.
My father had gotten a job in Wichita, Kansas. We came into New York originally, and I loved New York when I was a kid. And then we ended up going there, and that's where I met all these musicians, and just didn't know what I was going to do. And I was a bit, nobody could, had an accent, a real thick Brummie accent. I'm from Birmingham, which is everybody thinks everybody speaks one way over there. Right. Our vocabulary is the same, but we have different accents. If you go to the north, there's the northern accent, Liverpudlian, which is close to Brummie, but not. And in Manchester, and in the south is different. So it's a little bit like here, the
Right.
south, what have you, to some degree. But I had a few friends, and the sports were so, we only knew football as what you call soccer over here.
Right.
So I just really got into music, and I just stayed in my room all day. When I wasn't at school, that's all I do, listen to records, and one thing led to another, and then the songwriting thing came in at about 16, I guess.
Okay.
Paid off. Yeah, I read.
Tell me if I'm talking too much, but
no,
you're good.
You're doing perfect. I love it. And with your songwriting, I did hear on a podcast you were talking about one of your first songs one of your earlier songs that you wrote that you thought would be a good Jim Croce song. Was something about I went to the doctor, I think it was.
Oh my God.
I like to dig deep.
I talked about that. I can't believe it. Yeah, it was funny because I had pulled that out the other night. I don't know why I did. It was about an abortion. I wrote it when I was probably going on 16. Yeah, and I was having a laugh with myself. It's a horrible thing, but a doctor knocks up the girl. The girl, he doesn't want to have a child with him. So he performs the operation himself. And then he breaks down and cries that he did it in the street. And then the police come to arrest him.
My.
So, I don't know how it ends. but it was, oh my God, it's such a horrible song, but it's got a sense of humor to it. And
Elsa's Restaurant.
Yeah, I think that it was, and then but I wrote another song that in around that same time called "Lady of Mine" that was almost very country-esque, which is a much better song, and it was kind of very influenced by the group, the band, and I was just trying. When you're first of all, when you're doing the early stages of this, you're really just mucking about, as we say. You're just trying things to find your own voice. In my
Right.
case, there were many voices.
I
So
love it though. I
and I
love
had
it.
to look, but it paid off in so many different ways because there was a period of time I was doing commercials in New York, and in that I could sound like anybody, from Peter
Right.
Gabriel to Sting and all that. I was getting, because they wanted voices of the times, and
Right.
I'd be doing these commercials. So, and I didn't have to give my, cry little sister voice away, which
Yeah,
is
I
my
tried singing that the other day. That's a hard song to sing.
It is. I didn't realize how, and other people from Marilyn Manson to this one and the other one just saying, wow, no idea that song is going to be that difficult. It's simply complex.
It's simply G. It's all
Yeah.
you.
Song is just not simply read, which I like, by the way. Mick.
Well, and then in my digging also, I found out something that I just thought was the greatest thing I'd ever heard. When you moved to Colorado, you were sitting in on theatrical music classes as a student or at a college campus in Colorado, and you weren't enrolled as a student.
I beg your pardon?
That you weren't enrolled as a student, but you were sitting in on these classes.
My friend Mark, who won't give out his last name, but he was from Bone Player, and I spoke to him a few years ago, and he used to come in and play on sessions that I was doing with my little, track recorder, a 4-track. And I just, God, I really want to, because I didn't know how to literally write, I wanted to study orchestration because I had all these ideas in my head. And so he said, well, you come into so-and-so's class. He's really cool. He's from Boston and this, that, and the other. And I said, yeah, because I was always sneaking into the piano rooms, which were across the road from me, and just go in there. Nobody ever questioned that. I had like all these books I was studying just about theory and all of this, just kind of getting to know a bit more because I was not, properly trained. And so that in the back of the class. And at one day, after about 6 months go by, and the teacher came and said, hey, Red, call me Red because I have red hair. And he said, hey, are you enrolled here? And I'm going like, truth be told, I'm not. And he said, well, how did you get in here? I said, I heard your class was great. And I'm trying to learn. I don't have the kind of funds it takes to go to school here. And I was about 18, 19, I guess. So I was doing those classes, and at nighttime I was going down to Denver to play in an all R&B band in what's an area called 5 Points, which was all, which was great. I had taken up the bass, and I got myself a gig playing from 11 to 3 in the morning there. Wow. And I'd get up and go over to these classes, So he, getting back to Mr. So-and-so, the teacher, the music teacher, he said, well, let's see what you've got. I said, what do you mean? He said, let's go over to the piano room. So I go over there and play him, he said, well, play me your songs. And I started playing him some stuff. He said, where'd you learn how to play piano? I said, I taught myself. He said, really? And he said, show me what else you'd like. And I was playing some composition stuff that was kind of movie score stuff. And then I'd play him some songs. And he'd go, wow, songs are great. It wasn't that, when somebody's 36, 37 years old, when you're 18, they seem really old.
They do.
And he wasn't that old when you think about it, and because I knew his age. And so he said, well, I tell you what, you can sit in on my classes, but if you ever get a Grammy, I need to be the first person that you credit as somebody that supported you.
And did you do that?
I didn't. But Eminem got the Grammy. I wrote the song on that album, the You're Never Over, the chorus thing. And, but I'm sure I never got a call. Okay. Let's just, in today's time, if you could find somebody, and, I've changed my name. So who the hell is G-Tone Mac? So, but anyway.
Now we know the real reason he changed his name. That's awesome, though. I love that. Yeah, I loved that little finding out that fact. I was like, that is just, you would not be able to probably get away with that in this day and age. But the fact that you were able to do that and that how much it brought to your, learning to do the piano and your music and.
I was only in those classes for about a year's time, but I learned a lot. I could figure everything out after a while because I was always horrible at math, and I thought music, all that writing out stuff was very mathematic. But, I'm not the best at it, but I mean, I do there are other composers in that world of doing film that are far better. That's why, Jerry Bruckheimer, who I worked with long ago on a movie, he always said, you should go into orchestrating films and being a music composer. And I've done it, I just felt, I like what I do. I'm able to do that. Sometimes I go and and write songs and go out and perform. I like the mix of it all, and now doing musicals. I mean, again, I don't look at myself as like, I think Hans Zimmer, who I know is great, and he wanted me to be part of his camp at one point, and I just felt like these guys are they like can do. It's a lot of work doing that, and you're constantly pleasing the producers and the directors, and everybody's got a different idea. And I mean, mind you, if I were in there just doing that, I would definitely have every respect to the plan.
Right. Yeah, that little thing I thought that was so precious. But so we have a 25-year anniversary coming up this year.
Of an album called G.
Yeah.
Tom Mac.
Yeah.
That's the album we were talking about earlier. I can't believe it was 25 years ago. My God, it's just like, but that album was just one of those things that put the good graces of television when television was starting to get more hip with their music, like Felicity and Roswell and God, I mean, the list goes on. Baywatch of all things, my music seemed to be everywhere. And I didn't, DreamWorks took care of the licenses. So I never knew we didn't have all the access we have now to find out. I would see my statements, I go, oh, this is amazing.
Yeah.
So many, the WB, CW shows and many others. And it still goes on, with a lot of my music, my songs. They license.
Around 50 movies, 100 television shows. Is that correct?
Easily, probably over 100 something.
Probably, yeah. That's amazing, G.
It's sort of like, how many women have you been with? I don't remember. And I don't see any royalties. And I don't see any royalties coming in from.
Oh, that's odd.
Well, Fast Times at Ridgemount High. I remember I was pretty young when I saw that, and it was the first time that I had seen a sex scene in a movie.
Yeah.
And I was like, I remember as a kid, I was like, what did I just see? Rewind. Did I see that? Rewind. And then my mom walked in. She's like, what are you watching?
Right. You and and many other moms.
Yes.
Well, I'm proud to say that my song was playing in the sort of lead up to that.
Yes.
Which was interesting enough to look in your eyes. And then it went into Jackson Brown's Somebody's Baby, I think, right? It was just all when they went out to the pool house,
Right.
And, but yeah, it was Cameron Crowe, who, was the first time he had ever heard of me. And he came to a show or something like that with Irving Azoff, who was my record guy at the time, who was a manager. And I always knew Cameron Crowe as being a journalist, for Rolling Stone magazine, and a very good one at that. But he had written Fast Times at Ridgemount High. And so he took the song, he loved the song, and put it in a movie over that scene with Amy Hecklin, who was the director. So, and they both found it to really work well, and I'd written the song for that, I knew what the scene was. I didn't get to really watch. I did. I guess they sent me a clip. That's right. I'm just, memory brings that back. Yeah.
Well, and speaking of that, I know when we talked previous to this, you had mentioned with Lost Boys, you just had the script. You didn't have like any video or anything from the movie. So you wrote the Cry Little Sister from just the script.
That's right. Joel Schumacher, who I'd already known, and he was a big fan of my work, rang me up asking me if I would be, I was living in New York at the time, and asked me if I would like to take a go at his new movie called Lost Boys that he was directing. And I said, well, when can I take a look at it? He said, well, we're in Santa Cruz right now filming. He told me the premise of the film. And I said, well, what if I send you a script? Maybe you get a vibe, get an idea of what it is. And I said, sure, send it along. And I'd never, the films in the past, all these films, I'd always got to watch the film to get a vibe from it, or a clip or whatever.
Right.
And so I got the script and I read it one night and I was just so taken by it. I thought it was just so like that horror and humor meeting in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
It was very cool. And I got up the next day, I started writing, I got inspired, started writing the song. And little by little, I went up to my studio and just all these kinds. My friend Mike Maneri, who was we had these three little studio rooms, and I heard this beat going on. I said, "What the blazes is that?" And I went in, and he said, "Oh, just working on something." And I said, "Can I take that and bring it in? I want to, And I just started working on, the melody and the chord thing, and finally got the chorus, and then it was kind of written in like, and I started working on the lyrics, I think, took about 3 hours in total.
Wow.
And then we brought in some kids to sing the backing vocal parts. And the demo was quite good. And then I sent it off to Joel, and he called me 3 days later, and he just, I remember his voice was coming over my answer machine, and I was still in bed. And so I got up and he said, Joel, pick up. And I could hear Cry Little Sister in the background, And I said, what's up? And he said, been playing this song on set, mate. It's unbelievable. Everybody's going, what is that? And he said, well, it's the theme to this movie. And so it was just a shock to me because I never saw, I didn't see any, I don't think I would have written that song if I would have seen the film.
Right.
I just think everything in my imagination of what it was to look like was, it was a bit darker, in my, but, living in New York in the 80s, it was, crack vials on the street, it was just like this circus of the worst,
Right.
And it was interesting, just sort of, I'm a victim, not a victim, but I'm a product of my surroundings, like what I take in creatively. Product? Did I say that? Anyway, you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
So, but anyway, yeah. And then when I went out to see the film and see where everything was going, and I thought, wow, this is nothing what I thought it was going to look like and I thought it looked great. And then, there's so many magical factors to what went on with how we placed the song, because in the beginning, they had my voice in the beginning and it was in the middle. And I just take my voice out in the intro, or going over, a scene going over the water or whatever. And because my voice it was much more of a surprise when it came on in the middle of the film.
Right.
When cave and all that, and when it goes over the water and, the clouds and that stuff. So, but it was one of those things that just happened to have a life in that movie and a life of its own outside the movie.
Well, and Joel fought for you to be the singer of that song as well, correct?
Well, there was a lot. Joel really, and Dick Donner, rest his soul, they were adamant about my voice being the voice of, that voice and the song of the film. Atlantic Records at the time wanted to have one of their artists sing it. They gave them the good gracious of like, hey, we'll listen. But I think, who was it? Phil Collins did a try. God, I can't remember. A couple of other metal singers, Steve Perry, and a few others, And Joel just said, they're all great voices, but they don't have the quality that Gerard has.
I could not imagine that song being sung by anybody else.
Well, it has been. But
yes,
not
it has, but it's not the original.
Right. But so it just, it was just one of those things, tapped into the right vibe at the right time. And just, that film was really pretty synchronicity of its best.
Right.
Where,
Speaking of other people singing your songs, like Marilyn Manson covered it, churches covered it. How does that work for another artist if they want to cover another artist's song?
Well, you don't have to pay for it. You basically, if it goes in a movie or TV, but you basically have the rights to use the song, and I, as a writer and publisher, get paid once it's aired,
Okay.
And it's not like, but it's, I mean, honestly, well, the days when radio was really big, you got a lot of cash from that, and also from movies and TV shows
Right.
in my world, what's called performances, done very well with that.
Yeah,
You
because I
know,
think wasn't
yeah,
Churches a Netflix for
I
Netflix?
love her, by the way. I
It
like
is
it,
beautiful.
Lauren Berry. I think it's
Yeah.
one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's very haunting.
She definitely did a great interpretation of it.
And then else, the other thing I wanted to mention too is in the Lost Boys, I think it's the rock opera, the song Once Upon.
Yeah, that's in Cradle Sister, the rock opera. Yeah.
That song just got me. It reminds me, it has the essence of Cry Little Sister because it has the kids in it, but that song is so beautiful. I could not stop listening to it.
Well, thank you so very much. It's one of my favorite songs that I wrote from that for the musical. And it was originally going to be in Lost Boys, but where things went with that. But I'm really happy about Cry Little Sister becoming a rock opera because it was something, I felt that it could be a magnificent way to really pay homage to the female factor that came from Lost Boys, meaning
Right.
star.
Right.
And yeah, I can't get into the story right now, but I really feel it's got the sensibility. Well, like I said, it's sort of like what Wicked did with The Wizard of Oz. You brought, you, you, you invented something out of something, reinvented a character that basically flew in the best way, no pun intended.
Right.
But it's just got, and I feel that, The Lost Boys is an amazing franchise in itself. And it has, hopefully, the musical will just, fingers crossed that it'll do what I hope. It's got it definitely has a commercial value to where it's going now.
Right.
But, meaning that in a good way. I don't mean commercial like, oh, it's, but and hopefully it brings in a whole new audience as well.
Right.
You never.
Well, and that's because of the Lost Boys is how we were able to get in contact with you. We ran into Jameson at a con and we weren't even like at a table or at the, his signing or anything. We were at the elevator and I was having issues getting the elevator button to come on. And I was doing the, if the light's not on, it's not coming. And this other kid was like, no, you pressed it. It's coming. I'm like,
I'm glad I wasn't on that. I mean, that's my biggest fear, getting stuck on an elevator.
Well, this was outside before we got on the elevator. But Jameson walked up and he goes, oh, I had this issue earlier. You have to hit the button up in this corner. And I'm like, oh, you're brilliant. And we got in the elevator and we were chatting with him and stuff. And we got off the elevator and Jeremy looks at me. He's like, that was Jameson Newlander. I'm like, no way. And he's like, yeah. And then we went up to his table and got his autograph and pictures and stuff later. And we were joking around. I said, Jameson, I'm sorry, I didn't recognize you. And he goes, oh no, that's okay. And we kept joking around about being elevator buddies because we kept running into him in the elevator all weekend.
Yeah, well, hey, it was meant to be then, yeah?
It was. And there was a couple other people there. Well, from Lost Boys, it was Chance. Chance was there and Jameson, and then they had other.
Where was this? In Minneapolis?
It was, yeah.
I thought I seen you sitting out in the lobby area of the hotel.
Me?
Yeah, I thought so.
I wasn't there. I've not been in Minneapolis. I would have remembered that.
Okay.
But
it was our first con. It was fun.
It's always, I mean, especially when we all do them together, which we've done more of that over in Europe than here. I mean, with all of us, Kiefer, Jason, Billy, and it's massive. I don't know how big that one. These things are like 50,000, 60,000 people come in out through a weekend.
That's crazy.
It is, but it's been great. And Lost Boys has such a, it's timeless. It really, it's always playing somewhere in the world,
Right.
as a movie.
Oh, totally. And even kids that are younger know it.
Oh yeah. Well, my audience is in the first few rows, as much as I can see with the lights, are mainly like 20 somethings, mid 20s to early 30s. Yeah. So you knew that they grew up with their parents letting them watch it,
Right.
And so I was fascinated. I've always been fascinated by that, because our show, by the way, I'm so proud of it because we got this massive screen and it's got all this stuff, and I'm completely, every song I'm in tune with what's going on with the screen. So I play against it or with it. And we've been getting great reviews for every show we do in the cons and stuff. So it's been good. Come on out.
Yes,
Yeah,
I
we
can't
want
wait
to.
till we can make one.
What was the Minneapolis con called?
Crypticon.
Yeah.
Oh, right. I've heard of that.
Yeah, so I'll have to, maybe send out a message to the group at the Crypticon group and see if we can maybe get them to get some Lost Boys people.
We want to go to that thing in Santa Cruz in June. And then we just found out that my mom's coming that same weekend. So we can't go. Yeah.
She'll be coming here from Tennessee. And so we won't be able to go out to California.
Mom's coming, but it's a shame.
Yeah.
No, it's a shame that your mom's coming.
Well, and I saw that you were having that concert in Tennessee the end of June. And I want us to be able to do that too, but it's so hard with our work that we don't get much time off. So
well, that is in Kingsport, Tennessee, and it is called Smoky Terror. I can't believe I remember.
I love that.
Yeah, I love going down to those parts of the world, parts of the country.
I love Tennessee.
Fun. That's that's May 30th and June 1st.
Okay.
And I think it's going to be along with Corey Feldman and Jameson Newlander. So.
Jameson's going too, huh?
Yeah.
Very cool. He's going to have a busy month.
There's certain times I can't go out and do these shows live, but I'm going to be doing a lot more come the summer and into the fall. So have me up to Minneapolis. I would love that.
Okay.
Oh, for sure. And
but what I was going to say is, just the amount of pre-production that goes on with "Don't You Forget About Me" and "Cry Little Sister" and this documentary. It's like never. I'm lucky to get the weekend off.
Yeah, it's
and
hard.
even that sometimes I'm having to doodle with stuff. But anyway,
it's good to be busy sometimes. But it's nice to have a break.
Yeah, exactly. So
the one, go ahead.
Do you have more questions? I mean, I don't mean to.
No, there was a couple things that I wanted to bring up. One I thought was kind of funny with us being from Minnesota, and it kind of plays into your song with KISS that you wrote.
Oh yeah.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about how that?
I was in Minnesota when I wrote the song. I think
Duluth, Minnesota.
Yeah, it was wild. I mean, I was playing a gig there. This is early on, and I just gotten signed. I think no, I hadn't. I was just out doing gigs. I can't remember, and I was signed. My manager, so I was in a bar after the gig, and there was just like this girl in leather, and she was just probably taking the piss out of everyone, but she had a whip and everything. She said, "Hey, weren't you playing at blah blah blah?" And I'm going, "Yeah, blah blah blah." The bar was kind of packed.
Yeah.
It was a hotel. She said, and you could tell she was getting a little trashed. And she said, and then she said what she said. She said, "You got a guitar up in your bedroom, in your room?" And I said, "I do." And she said, "Well, how about we go up there and I give you a good whipping?" And I said, "Well, I'd rather go up and write a song about it." And so that's where that sort of came from. And I was kind of like, I loved AC/DC. I just thought, well, I should go camp. And I didn't have no idea that, I just wrote it, made a demo of it. And then their producer, Vinny Poncia, was producing the Unmasked album, and he said and he wanted to produce what would have been my first album, what was my first album. He said, play me everything you got. And so I was, and I played him, Is That You? And I said, I'm not really feeling that this is really part of the thread of the album,
Right.
He said, well, would you mind if I play? He says, it's a hit song, man. And I'm going like, well, he said, would you mind if I played it for KISS? And I'm going like, that's kind of daft, they write their own songs. I knew that,
Right.
They don't need a hit. And I'm thinking like, oh, this, anyway, so they played it for them and they loved it and they went and recorded it.
That's awesome.
And
That's amazing. I love that. When I saw
it could have been my second cover. I think I had my first cover was by the R&B band called Tavares, which had written that song, Bad Times, for the movie Jerry Bruckheimer's film Defiance, that was in 1980 or something. And I had no idea what you did to writing songs for movies. I wrote that song, then he had me write 3 or 4 more. It was a movie that was around John Michael Vincent, Teresa Saldana, and everybody that went on to be in The Sopranos, just about. And but it was the first time I ever did music for a film, and I was just, that's a whole story in the documentary. It's pretty funny because I had no idea how much money I was going to make, and it was far more than what I ever thought. And I was behind my rent, and I was literally, I better figure something else out. And it was like, yeah, I was able to stay in LA just a little bit longer.
It was a nice surprise, definitely.
It was.
Yeah, you've done so much over your career. It's just reading everything, going down the list, and I mean, trying to research and dig into all of, because we love to dig into, little things that people don't know or that are little known. And so I had a lot of fun, but I think this was one of my bigger projects to really get into digging down deep. One little gem that I found when I was researching as well, back in 2009, you were on an internet radio show, which I thought was great because I completely forgot about the internet radio shows.
Right, that's right.
It was called Vamp Radio, and you did an interview with Corey Haim.
We did.
Yeah.
Yeah, Corey Haim and I remember we did a few of those back in the day because my publicist was really said, no, you got to do these. These would be great. They were small things, but they kind of blew up. And so I asked Corey, I said, because I was looking after him for a little bit because he was he had just kind of getting cleaned up and looking after him by letting him stay at my place. He was definitely with the plan. He was a lovely guy, said just a lot of talent and misplacements, is what I could say. And with the child star kind of thing. But he wasn't egotistical. He was just a genuinely giving person. So I said, you want to come on and do a few things? I thought it would help his career as well. Right. And so we did a few of them, and it was a lot of fun. He loved it. And we had he could, his fans were coming on, and I did it really for him to sort of like get his life back, Right. And that was but we had fun doing it. Yeah, I do remember those internet shows back then. Yeah,
it was kind of surreal listening to it, knowing that it was only a year later that he had succumbed to pneumonia.
Yeah, about a year later he passed away. Shame.
It was big shame.
Way too young, and he was a good soul, and that's the one thing I got to see in him. It's just if he would have just. I mean, he could have been one of those guys that surfaced, but it's that child. You see a lot of that go on, Yeah.
Well, they have a lot. There's a lot, That's a lot of pressure for young children.
Yeah, there really is.
It is, and then the other evils of Hollywood, but we won't get into all of that.
So did any of that music ever? Yeah.
And the evils in Hollywood come in so many different fashions.
Yeah.
And then there's a good side of Hollywood. There are, having lived here long enough now, I just say, I get big doses of it and I get small doses of it. Thank God I go to New York and London enough times that and go on the road that I have a perspective about coming back here because I enjoy it when I do come back,
Right.
And, but I stay away from all that kind of rubbish that's out there, like, what I call the TMZ rubbish.
So did any of that?
Gotta be filmed, no matter if I'm killing somebody, vomiting, or just being absolutely rude. And then every once in a while, if you're really nice, you don't get any press.
Yeah, that is true.
I think people getting really nice is a better idea, and I think we need a bit more of that.
Yeah.
You know?
So did any of that music with Haim ever make it out into the world?
Well, we did. I wrote a song. I got into, to chime in on some of the lyrics to this song called "Mend Me," and I still have the track. Never released it. We did There's a little video, I think, that of him and me doing it. I don't know if you saw that.
I did not.
We were in the studio, recording it, and you can get it. You can find it, but it was quite. It was really fun, and it was very much of an inspired moment of his past and his sort of, getting his life back. Hence the name Mend Me.
Right. Yeah, I'd love to listen to that. I'll have to find it.
Yeah, me too. He sounds like he would have a good singing voice,
He did, and we did a duet singing back and forth on the song.
Okay.
And that was what was really fun, because and he said, "No, I want you." He was so adamant about, because when we were sitting down playing it and stuff, we were singing back and forth, and so we did, and it came out. I'm really proud of it. It should be released. It should be out there. It's a very positive song.
Yeah, definitely. I can't wait to hear it. So with everything that you have coming up, we've covered the musical, Don't You Forget About Me. You've got the rock opera coming up, the Lost Boys rock opera. You have the Lost Boys, the musical coming up. Is there anything else the documentary, How Did I Get Here? Is there anything else that you have coming up that we haven't covered?
I hope not.
That's enough, huh?
Just that down alone made me tired.
Yeah.
You made me tired too. I'm excited to see it all, and I really hope that we can make it out to one of your shows. And I hope that we can, make it to a con or something that you're at, because I would love to meet you in person. I mean, we had so much fun meeting Jameson. I would love to meet you in person.
Yeah, well, let's do that.
Yeah.
Just 1-800-GTOM-MAC. Book me. I'll be
sweet.
Yeah. I will definitely reach out to the people at Crypticon and see what I can do. I mean, I don't think they plan. I think it's
a lot of these times they don't have live music, because that's part of what most of them now are. I mean, I was sort of the first ones to do that, back in 2009, I think Monster Mania in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. And that's when the first con I did. And that was an eye opener to how many fans there were,
I'm sure.
And I performed that night, 3,000 people in a ballroom. It was amazing. Just acoustically, I did the whole thing.
Wow.
But went on to do, as things developed, we started getting more and more into just a big badass show. So
yeah, I know they did music, a live band at the one in Minneapolis. Do you remember who played Jeremy?
I don't.
Oh, I want to say it was the guy from Nightmare on Elm Street, the one with the longer, dark hair.
Oh, you mean Ari Lehman? No, he was he? No. Ari Lehman, who I think he was in Nightmare. What was the one where he comes up out of the water?
Oh, Jason. Yeah, they had some people from
Jason. That's
Friday the 13th.
He was the first Jason. Right.
Okay,
he's a talented guy. He's very talented.
But yeah, they had a couple different people that sang that weekend. It's definitely not, it's like a large bar area. It's not like 3,000 people.
Right.
Thing,
yeah. They're finding that it's a really, the ones in the UK are massive, and they do it right. I mean, there's like 3,000 people at what they call it an after party concert, and they're out. The sound system, the lighting is just exquisite.
Yeah, there's a con going on this weekend that we wanted to go to, but Supernatural. They have a con in Minneapolis this weekend.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, $1,600 for gold package.
Yeah. I've seen what they are now, what they used to be. It's, people save a lot of money to go to these things. And hey, it's it's great.
Thank you for your time. And we're very grateful doing this. This has just been wonderful.
Yeah, thanks, G.
I'm pleased.
Yes, we look forward to seeing all of your future projects. Hopefully getting to come and see some of them in person. And again, thank you. And don't be too busy. Take some time for yourself and enjoy
rock
it.
on.
Rock on. Yes.
Thank you very much for having me on. I really enjoyed doing this interview quite a lot. So all good questions and nothing daft. That was good.
No doubt.
Yay!
No doubt.
All
Well,
right.
Thank you.
again, Jay.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you,
Yes,
G.
thank you, G. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Take care now.
All right, Conundrum Crew, we've got a special treat for you. G sent us a song from his musical, Don't You Forget About Me. The track you're about to hear is called Stay Always. And let me just say, it's pure G Tom Mac magic. So close your eyes, turn it up, and let the vibes take over.
If I never lived the life that led me wrong, maybe I would never know the right thing. Every curse along the way, I beat the odds. Oh, when they tell me never set your hopes too high, when they tell you to be realistic, what is living if you listen to them all? Well, I can play the part of desperate Aristotle, or I can ride this fight out strong. And on, and on, and on, and there's a moment in my day I feel the weight of the darkness and the child I can't be. Then the reason to be me will come along. Not a shadow of a miracle, no sign of the very thing they say you should see. What about the power of the waking star? The one that says there is a chance tomorrow. The one that keeps me strong. And on, and on, and on. Along the way I beat the odds. In the crying when there really is tomorrow. And the one thing keeps me strong. And on, and on, and on, and stay with me always. Help me, forgive me. If there really is a God, then you should know. Stay with me always. Help me, forgive me. If there really is a God, then you should know. I'll make it home. I'll make it home. I'll make it home. I'll make it home.
Thanks for hanging out with us here at Total Conundrum. Please make sure to check out our website and blog at totalconundrum.com for news, upcoming events, merch, bloopers, and additional hysteria. You never know what will pop up, so be sure to follow along. If you want to show your support for Total Conundrum and gain access to all of our bonus content, please visit our Patreon page. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. The links are available in our show notes. If you have any questions, comments, recommendations, or stories to share, please email us at contact@totalconundrum.com. Episodes are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. If you like the show, please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. We appreciate the love. Keep on creeping on, mother cluckers.